Hey, I am going to be doing my midterm presentation today. You can tell it's mine because it's very short and it's about the brain. So, I'm going to be talking about neurons first. So, neurons are the things that are kind of like the tracks for the brain. So, a lot of your information stuff kind of flows on these and kind of travels on them. They're practically what holds the whole brain together in a lot of ways. They're your basic, like, pew pew. They're what I like to think about them is they're kind of like the things that help like give the railroad for the train to be together. So like they're like an idea or thought travels on neurons through the brain. So what I like to think about is the different parts of the brain are the stations and the neurons are the tracks. So let's start taking a look at some of the stations. The lower brain or brainstem, that's going to be your kind of your basic level ideas. So like a lot of your like main that along with the hypothalamus, whereas a lot of your like fight or flight, not fight or flight. I'm sorry. Yeah, fight or flight, sleep cycle, your regulatory care. So like your eating, sleep, like your stomach, your intestinal digestion, your heart rate, your like anything you don't have to think about doing takes place there. And we should be really thankful for that because it'd be a lot harder to like enjoy a day when you've got to think about your heart beating all the time. I know I probably would just not have a heartbeat, which would not be good because I don't think you can live without one. So after that, and the hypothalamus, which I kind of talked about there too, we move on to the amygdala, which I might be pronouncing not 100% correct, so let me try one more time. Amygdala. So the amygdala is mature birth. It is going to be kind of your seat of emotion, your bonding, your fear. Pretty much it's a lot of like it gives a lot of your emotional like ideas at a young age. So and what they found too is like I was reading more into this is that the bigger the amygdala, the more the more anxiety that you have. So pretty much if you have a big amygdala, that means you probably had a really rough childhood, which we're going to get into that more later because this is like all of this is down part of the downstairs part of the brain, which really kind of does not lead to good learning. So soon we're going to be talking about the upstairs part of the brain, which is a lot more about good learning. So this is just kind of I'm just kind of trying to go over a couple little ideas here. But the amygdala is really important. It's probably one of the most important, especially for like learning, for you to know about because if something goes wrong or if a kid seems like anxious or nervous in class or it's just not like doesn't seem like they've had a bad home life, this is what's causing them not to be able to learn. The hippocampus is important because it stores memories. It's your long-term memory and it regulates emotion, which means it just kind of helps you focus your emotions. It's not as important obviously to the emotional part as the amygdala is, but like I said, helps, especially it's like your long-term memory. So without it, we wouldn't be able to keep like memories from our childhood. So if you enjoy that memory with your grandmother getting ice cream on Sunday, that's probably the hippocampus doing its work. And then, it says they're both the next 15 seconds of life. That's pretty much saying like without these, we would probably not be around to be able to enjoy the next 15 seconds. Okay, so your prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that matures. It's not fully developed until you're an adult. And I'm like 23 right now, so like my prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. I got 2 more years, but I'm looking forward to it. It maintains attention, which I'm really bad at. So obviously my prefrontal cortex is a little wonky. It controls impulses, problem solving. It's practically like your thinking's man part of the brain. I was reading online too on this one, and it's like a lot of people compare it to like the the controller, and like in the next slide you kind of show it's like you have it as like a wise leader. So like this brain's kind of like your control center, and I get distracted a lot. So the people at my control center I think are just a little crazy, which that's okay. We all have a little bit of a different control team, I'm sure, but it also helps us express emotion. So like you're able to like as you develop more, you're able to kind of share your emotions more, or supposed to. So it's a really cool part of the brain. I think it's probably my favorite part because I wish I had a better one. this here's an example of how like to think about the different parts of the brain. So the amygdala we're going to think about as the guard dog because it's protective. Is let's say somebody sneaks into your lawn, the guard dog is going to be like, ah, bad, get rid of him, bark, kind of try to scare it away, or it's going to be afraid of it. If it's like more like how my dogs are, which they're just going to be like, ugh, and run away. But the amygdala pretty much is like it has a lot of your anxiety and fear, which I was talking about earlier. So if this active, the next two parts of the brain don't work really well, which I'll get to the next slide shows you that more. But the hippocampus is the memory saver, so anything that you were able to like keep in your mind and think about like later, like the long-term stuff I was saying, that's going to be your hippocampus. Prefrontal cortex, which is the lives leader, that's what I was talking about, the control center, like he's able to kind of keep things in mind and come back to them later. Okay, pattern experience. So this is where I think it gets really interesting. So like the way I noticed your slides were here, I like to think about it as like, so you have the upstairs and downstairs part of the brain, right? If the downstairs part of the brain kind of like and stops the upstairs part of the brain from working, you really can't like function. You want like as a kid in school, you want them to be using their upstairs part of the brain. So what I've been like, how I think about it is you've got like your stairs here, like you've got your one stairs leading down to the basement, you've got your stairs leading up here to the upper floor, and this is kind of like your floor. So it goes from the sensory input to the limbic system, and then if it's like, oh, hey, everything's going fine today, I'm not scared out of my mind, there's nothing wrong, you're going to be using, or like a normal kid who doesn't have a lot of at home problems is going to be going up here when they go to school. But if a kid's like, this is an extreme example, let's say like her mother is like, her mother the night before like literally yells at her and screams at the top of her lungs about how she wished she didn't have her, throws something at her, then she's probably going to be feeling this and is not really into school the next day. And like you as a teacher, it's going to be really hard to like figure out how to deal with that. Obviously, you're going to have to be very understanding of them, and we're going to get more into that with Maslow here at the end of the slide deck. So we'll wait till the end to talk about that. And then this is another picture of the upstairs, downstairs, which I kind of just explained. And downstairs part is going to be your amygdala and the brain stem and lower parts of the brain, and then your upper part is going to be the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. The hypothalamus would be down there too. Trauma in the brain. As I've kind of been talking about the video, how trauma can like cause it where the brain doesn't really function like it's supposed to. So if a kid has a more traumatic past, they're not going to be able to they're not going to learn as well, which is not good. And that will be a lot of the problems is like, if they're coming in with a scared attitude and their downstairs part of the brain is more in control, then they're not going to be able to do as well in school. So here's some scans of like a healthy brain to an abused brain, and you can see like the brain that is not had a lot of problems. Did I move that in? Is it seeable? But the brain that's had not a lot of problems, the healthy brain, which has not been scared to death, is going to have a lot more use of the brain because their brain's been able to go up to the upstairs part of the brain and get as much functioning as possible. But as I was saying earlier with the girl whose mother like yelled at her the night before and threw something at her, she's, let's say the mother does that every night, that kid's brain is going to be more like this because they've had so many problems, they've never been able to like use that part of the brain because they're always coming to school freaked out and they're never able to use the brain to be able to help save these information for school and stuff, especially like the prefrontal cortex is what deals with mathematics and like your problem solving part of the brain, and you can't really get to the problem solving part of the brain if you're freaked out all the time. That's what I'm just going to kind of talk about that one. And then this is Maslow. So pretty much he helped kind of describe kids as like, his idea is that with kids is that they're always inherently good, but they probably have had problems and stuff, which has caused issues as they've grown older. So with the way to use Maslow is like any kid can learn pretty much. The problem is we don't know what's happened to them the night before. And that's can kind of be what causes so many of them problems with learning. And how do we solve that as teachers is, I think, is a great question that we all as a community can kind of come together and figure out. Yeah, as that slide says, we need to not punish kids for their neurology, and kind of instead of that, we need to like try to help them find a way to be able to learn. If they're coming from these troubled homes, we need to redirect them to the upstairs part of the brain and help them learn. Because that's what our goal as teachers is, to teach them how to learn. It's not to punish them. If they're getting punished at home also, like that's just double punishment. That's not good for anybody. And that's it. Thank you.